a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Rajneesh. Rajneesh, also known as Acharya Rajneesh, Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, and latterly as Osho, was an Indian godman and leader of the Rajneesh movement. During his lifetime he was viewed as a controversial new religious movement leader and mystic. In the 1960s he travelled throughout India as a public speaker and was a vocal critic of socialism, arguing that India was not ready for socialism and that socialism, communism and anarchism could evolve only when capitalism had reached its maturity. Osho also criticised Mahatma Gandhi and Hindu religious orthodoxy. Rajneesh emphasized the importance of meditation, mindfulness, love, celebration, courage, creativity and humor, qualities that he viewed as being suppressed by adherence to static belief systems, religious tradition, and socialization. In advocating a more open attitude to human sexuality, he caused controversy in India during the late 1960s and became known as the sex guru. In 1970, Rajneesh spent time in Mumbai initiating followers known as neo-sannyasins. During this period he expanded his spiritual teachings and commented extensively in discourses on the writings of religious traditions, mystics, and philosophers from around the world. In 1974, Rajneesh relocated to Pune, where an ashram was established and a variety of therapies, incorporating methods first developed by the Human Potential movement, were offered to a growing Western following. By the late 1970s, the tension between the ruling Janata Party government of Morarji Desai and the movement led to a curbing of the ashram's development and a back taxes claim estimated at $5 million. In 1981, the Rajneesh movement's efforts refocused on activities in the United States and Rajneesh relocated to a facility known as Rajneeshpuram in Wasco County, Oregon. Almost immediately the movement ran into conflict with county residents and the state government, and a succession of legal battles concerning the ashram's construction and continued development curtailed its success. In 1985, in the wake of a series of serious crimes by his followers, including a mass food poisoning attack with salmonella bacteria and an aborted assassination plot to murder U.S. Attorney Charles H. Turner, Rajneesh alleged that his personal secretary Ma Anand Sheila and her close supporters had been responsible. He was later deported from the United States in accordance with an offered plea bargain. After his deportation, 21 countries denied him entry. He ultimately returned to India and revived Pune Ashram, where he died in 1990. Rajneesh's ashram, now known as Osho International Meditation Resort, and all associated intellectual property, is managed by the Zurich-registered Osho International Foundation. Rajneesh's teachings have had a notable impact on Western New Age thought, and their popularity has increased markedly since his death. Childhood and adolescence, 1931-1950. Rajneesh was born Chandramohan Jain, the eldest of 11 children of a cloth merchant, at his maternal grandparents' house in Kushwada, a small village in the Raisin district of Madhya Pradesh state in India. His parents Babulal and Saraswati Jain, who were Turanpanthi Jains, let him live with his maternal grandparents until he was 7 years old. By Rajneesh's own account, this was a major influence on his development, because his grandmother gave him the utmost freedom, leaving him carefree without an imposed education or restrictions. When he was 7 years old, his grandfather died, and he went to Gadarwara to live with his parents. Rajneesh was profoundly affected by his grandfather's death, and again by the death of his childhood girlfriend and cousin Shashi from typhoid when he was 15, leading to a preoccupation with death that lasted throughout much of his childhood and youth. In his school years, he was a rebellious but gifted student, and gained a reputation as a formidable debater. Rajneesh became an anti-theist, took an interest in many methods to expand consciousness, including breath control, yogic exercises, meditation, fasting, the occult and hypnosis. Also briefly associated with socialism and two Indian nationalist organizations, the Indian National Army and the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. However, his membership in the organizations was short-lived as he could not submit to any external discipline. ideology or system. University years and public speaker, 1951-1970. In 1951, aged 19, Rajneesh began his studies at Hikarini College in Jabalpur. Asked to leave after conflicts with an instructor, he transferred to D.N. Jain College, also in Jabalpur. Having proved himself to be disruptively argumentative, he was not required to attend college classes in D.N. Jain College except for examinations, and used his free time to work for a few months as an assistant editor at a local newspaper. He began speaking in public at the annual Sarvadharma Sammelan held at Jabalpur, organized by the Taranpanthi Jain community into which he was born, and participated there from 1951 to 1968. He resisted his parents' pressure to get married. Rajneesh later said he became spiritually enlightened on the 21st of March 1953, when he was 21 years old, in a mystical experience while sitting under a tree in the Bhanvatal garden in Jabalpur. Having completed his BA in philosophy at D.N. Jain College in 1955, he joined the University of Sagar, where in 1957 he earned his MA in philosophy. He immediately secured a teaching position at Raipur Sanskrit College, but the Vice-Chancellor soon asked him to seek a transfer as he considered him a danger to his students' morality, character and religion. From 1958, he taught philosophy as a lecturer at Jabalpur University, being promoted to professor in 1960. A popular lecturer, he was acknowledged by his peers as an exceptionally intelligent man who had been able to overcome the deficiencies of his early small-town education. In parallel to his university job, he travelled throughout India under the name Acharya Rajneesh, giving lectures critical of socialism, Gandhian institutional religions. He said that socialism would socialize only poverty, and he described Gandhi as a masochist reactionary who worshipped poverty. What India needed to escape its backwardness was capitalism, science, modern technology and birth control. He criticized orthodox Indian religions as dead, filled with empty ritual, oppressing their followers with fears of damnation and the promise of blessings. Such statements made him controversial, but also gained him a loyal following that included a number of wealthy merchants and businessmen. These sought individual consultations from him about their spiritual development and daily life. In return for donations, a conventional arrangement in India, and his practice snowballed. From 1962, he began to lead 3 to 10-day meditation camps, and the first meditation centers started to emerge around his teaching. They're known as the Life Awakening movement. After a controversial speaking tour in 1966, he resigned from his teaching post at the request of the university. In a 1968 lecture series, later published under the title From Sex to Superconsciousness, he scandalized Hindu leaders by calling for freer acceptance of sex and became known as the sex guru in the Indian press. When in 1969 he was invited to speak at the Second World Hindu Conference, despite the misgivings of some Hindu leaders, his statements raised controversy again when he said, "Any religion which considers life meaningless and full of misery and teaches the hatred of life is not a true religion. Religion is an art that shows how to enjoy life." He characterized Brahmin as being motivated by self-interest, provoking the Shankaracharya of Puri, who tried in vain to have his lecture stopped. Mumbai, 1970-1974. At a public meditation event in early 1970, Rajneesh presented his dynamic meditation method for the first time. He left Jabalpur for Mumbai at the end of June. On the 26th of September 1970, he initiated his first group of disciples or neo-sannyasins. Becoming a disciple meant assuming a new name and wearing the traditional orange dress of ascetic Hindu holy men, including a mala carrying a locket with his picture. However, his sannyasins were encouraged to follow a celebratory rather than ascetic lifestyle. He himself was not to be worshipped, but regarded as a catalytic agent, a sun encouraging the flower to open. He had by then acquired a secretary, Lakshmi Thakasi Kaur, who as his first disciple had taken the name Ma Yoga Lakshmi. Lakshmi was the daughter of one of his early followers. a wealthy Jain who had been a key supporter of the Indian National Congress during the struggle for Indian independence, with close ties to Gandhi, Nehru, and Morarji Desai. She raised the money that enabled Rajneesh to stop his travels and settle down. In December 1970, he moved to the Woodlands Apartments in Mumbai, where he gave lectures and received visitors. Among them his first Western visitors. He now travelled rarely, no longer speaking at open public meetings. In 1971, he adopted the title, Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh. Shri is a polite form of address roughly equivalent to the English, Sir. Bhagwan means, blessed one, used in Indian traditions as a term of respect for a human being in whom the divine is no longer hidden, but apparent. Later, when he changed his name, he would redefine the meaning of Bhagwan. Pune Ashram, 1974-1981. The humid climate of Mumbai proved detrimental to Rajneesh's health. He developed diabetes, asthma and numerous allergies. In 1974, on the 21st anniversary of his experience in Jabalpur, he moved to a property in Kari Jain Park, Pune, purchased with the help of Ma Yogamukta, a Greek shipping heiress. Rajneesh spoke at the Pune ashram from 1974 to 1981. The two adjoining houses and 6 acres of land became the nucleus of an ashram, and the property is still the heart of the present-day Osho International Meditation Resort. It allowed the regular audio recording and, later, video recording and printing of his discourses for worldwide distribution, enabling him to reach far larger audiences. The number of Western visitors increased sharply. The ashram soon featured an arts and crafts center producing clothes, jewelry, ceramics and organic cosmetics, and hosted performances of theatre, music and mime. From 1975, after the arrival of several therapists from the human potential movement, the ashram began to complement meditations with a growing number of therapy groups, which became a major source of income for the ashram. The Pune ashram was by all accounts an exciting and intense place to be, with an emotionally charged, madhouse carnival atmosphere. The day began at 6 a.m. with dynamic meditation. From 8 a.m. Rajneesh gave a 60 to 90-minute spontaneous lecture in the ashram's Buddha Hall auditorium, commenting on religious writings or answering questions from visitors and disciples. Until 1981, lecture series held in Hindi alternated with series held in English. During the day, various meditations and therapies took place, whose intensity was ascribed to the spiritual energy of Rajneesh's Buddha field. In evening darshans, Rajneesh conversed with individual disciples or visitors and initiated disciples. Sannyasins came for darshan when departing or returning, or when they had anything they wanted to discuss. To decide which therapies to participate in, visitors either consulted Rajneesh or selected according to their own preferences. Some of the early therapy groups in the ashram, such as the Encounter group, were experimental, allowing a degree of physical aggression as well as sexual encounters between participants. Conflicting reports of injuries sustained in Encounter group sessions began to appear in the press. Richard Price, at the time a prominent human potential movement therapist and co-founder of the SLN Institute, found the groups encouraged participants to be violent rather than play at being violent, and criticized them for the worst mistakes of some inexperienced SLN group leaders. Price is alleged to have exited the Pune ashram with a broken arm following a period of 8 hours locked in a room with participants armed with wooden weapons. Bernard Gunther, his SLN colleague, fared better in Pune and wrote a book, Dying for Enlightenment, featuring photographs and lyrical descriptions of the meditations and therapy groups. Violence in the therapy groups eventually ended in January 1979, when the ashram issued a press release stating that violence had fulfilled its function within the overall context of the ashram as an evolving spiritual commune. Sannyasins who had graduated from months of meditation and therapy could apply to work in the ashram, in an environment that was consciously modeled on the community the Russian mystic Gurdjieff led in France in the 1930s. Key features incorporated from Gurdjieff were hard, unpaid labor, and supervisors chosen for their abrasive personality, both designed to provoke opportunities for self-observation and transcendence. Many disciples chose to stay for years. Besides the controversy around the therapies, allegations of drug use amongst sannyasin began to mar the ashram's image. Some Western sannyasins were alleged to be financing extended stays in India through prostitution and drug running. A few people later alleged that while Rajneesh was not directly involved, they discussed such plans and activities with him in darshan and he gave his blessing. By the latter 1970s, the Pune ashram was too small to contain the rapid growth and Rajneesh asked that somewhere larger be found. Sannyasins from around India started looking for properties. Those found included one in the province of Kutch in Gujarat and two more in India's mountainous north. The plans were never implemented as mounting tensions between the ashram and the Janata Party government of Morarji Desai resulted in an impasse. Land use approval was denied and, more importantly, the government stopped issuing visas to foreign visitors who indicated the ashram as their main destination. Besides, Desai's government cancelled the tax-exempt status of the ashram with retrospective effect, resulting in a claim estimated at $5 million. Conflicts with various Indian religious leaders aggravated the situation. By 1980 the ashram had become so controversial that Indira Gandhi, despite a previous association between Rajneesh and the Indian Congress Party dating back to the 60s, was unwilling to intercede for it after her return to power. In May 1980, during one of Rajneesh's discourses, an attempt on his life was made by Vilas Tupe, a young Hindu fundamentalist. Tupe claims that he undertook the attack because he believed Rajneesh to be an agent of the CIA. By 1981, Rajneesh's ashram hosted 30,000 visitors per year. Daily discourse audiences were by then predominantly European and American. Many observers noted that Rajneesh's lecture style changed in the late 70s, becoming less focused intellectually and featuring an increasing number of ethnic or dirty jokes intended to shock or amuse his audience. On the 10th of April 1981, having discoursed daily for nearly 15 years, Rajneesh entered a 3.5-year period of self-imposed public silence and satsangs, silent sitting with music and readings from spiritual works such as Khalil Gibran's The Prophet or the Isha Upanishad, replaced discourses. Around the same time, Ma Anand Sheela replaced Ma Yoga Lakshmi as Rajneesh's secretary. Arrival in the United States. In 1981, the increased tensions around the Pune ashram, along with criticism of its activities and threatened punitive action by the Indian authorities, provided an impetus for the ashram to consider the establishment of a new commune in the United States. According to Susan J. Palmer, the move to the United States was a plan from Sheela. Gordon notes that Sheela and Rajneesh had discussed the idea of establishing a new commune in the US in late 1980, although he did not agree to travel there until May 1981. On the 1st of June that year he traveled to the United States on a tourist visa, ostensibly for medical purposes, and spent several months at a Rajneeshi retreat center located at Kipps Castle in Montclair, New Jersey. He had been diagnosed with a prolapsed disc in early 1981 and treated by several doctors, including James Syriacs, a St. Thomas Hospital musculoskeletal physician and expert in epidural injections flown in from London. Rajneesh's previous secretary, Lakshmi, reported to Francis Fitzgerald that she had failed to find a property in India adequate to Rajneesh's needs, and thus, when the medical emergency came, the initiative had passed to Sheela. A public statement by Sheela indicated that Rajneesh was in grave danger if he remained in India, but would receive appropriate medical treatment in America if he needed surgery. Despite the stated serious nature of the situation, Rajneesh never sought outside medical treatment during his time in the United States, leading the Immigration and Naturalization Service to contend that he had a preconceived intent to remain there. Rajneesh later pleaded guilty to immigration fraud, while maintaining his innocence of the charges that he made false statements on his initial visa application about his alleged intention to remain in the US when he came from India. Establishing Rajneeshpuram. On the 13th of June 1981, Sheela's husband, John Shelfer, signed a purchase contract to buy property in Oregon for $5.75 million, and a few days later assigned the property to the U.S. Foundation. The property was a 64,229-acre ranch, previously known as the Big Muddy Ranch, and located across 2 Oregon counties. It was renamed Rancho Rajneesh, and Rajneesh moved there on the 29th of August. Initial local community reactions ranged from hostility to tolerance, depending on distance from the ranch. The press reported, and another study found, that the development met almost immediately with intense local, state, and federal opposition from the government, press and citizenry. Within months a series of legal battles ensued, principally over land use. Within a year of arriving, Rajneesh and his followers had become embroiled in a series of legal battles with their neighbors, the principal conflict relating to land use. The commune leadership was uncompromising and behaved impatiently in dealing with the locals. They were also insistent upon having demands met, and engaged in implicitly threatening and directly confrontational behavior. The repeated changes in their stated plans looked like conscious deception, whether it was or not. In May 1982 the residents of Rancho Rajneesh voted to incorporate it as the city of Rajneeshpuram. The conflict with local residents escalated, with increasingly bitter hostility on both sides, and over the following years, the commune was subject to constant and coordinated pressures from various coalitions of Oregon residents. 1,000 Friends of Oregon immediately commenced and then prosecuted over the next 6 years numerous court and administrative actions to void the incorporation and cause buildings and improvement to be removed. 1,000 Friends publicly called for the city to be dismantled. A 1,000 Friends attorney stated that if 1,000 Friends won, the foundation would be forced to remove their sewer system and tear down many of the buildings. At one point, the commune imported large numbers of homeless people from various U.S. cities in a failed attempt to affect the outcome of an election, before releasing them into surrounding towns and leaving some to the state of Oregon to return to their home cities at the state's expense. In March 1982, local residents formed a group called Citizens for Constitutional Cities to oppose the ranch development. An initiative petition was filed that would order the governor to contain, control and remove the threat of invasion by an alien cult. The Oregon legislature passed several bills that sought to slow or stop the development in the city of Rajneeshpuram, including HB 3080, which stopped distribution of revenue-sharing funds for any city whose legal status had been challenged. Rajneeshpuram was the only city impacted. The governor of Oregon, Acharya, stated in 1982 that since their neighbors did not like them, they should leave Oregon. In May 1982, United States Senator Mark Hatfield called the INS in Portland. An INS memo stated that the senator was very concerned about how this religious cult is endangering the way of life for a small agricultural town and is a threat to public safety. Such actions often do have influence on immigration decisions. In 1983 the Oregon Attorney General filed a lawsuit seeking to declare the city void because of an alleged violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment to the Constitution. The court found that the city property was owned and controlled by the foundation, and entered judgment for the state. The court disregarded the controlling U.S. constitutional cases requiring that a violation be redressed by the least intrusive means necessary to correct the violation, which it has earlier cited. The city was forced to acquiesce in the decision as part of a settlement of Rajneesh's immigration case. While the various legal battles ensued, Rajneesh remained behind the scenes, having withdrawn from a public-facing role in what commune leadership referred to as a period of silence. During this time, which lasted until November 1984, in lieu of Rajneesh speaking publicly, videos of his discourses were played to commune audiences. His time was allegedly spent mostly in seclusion and he communicated only with a few key disciples, including Ma Anand Sheela and his caretaker girlfriend Ma Yoga Vivek. He lived in a trailer next to a covered swimming pool and other amenities. At this time he did not lecture and interacted with followers via a Rolls-Royce drive-by ceremony. He also gained public notoriety for amassing a large collection of Rolls-Royce cars, eventually numbering 93 vehicles. In 1981 he had given Sheila limited power of attorney, removing any remaining limits the following year. In 1983, Sheila announced that he would henceforth speak only with her. He later said that she kept him in ignorance. Many sannyasins expressed doubts about whether Sheila properly represented Rajneesh, and many dissidents left Rajneeshpuram in protest of its autocratic leadership. Resident sannyasins without US citizenship experienced visa difficulties that some tried to overcome by marriages of convenience. Commune administrators tried to resolve Rajneesh's own difficulty in this respect by declaring him the head of a religion, Rajneeshism. During the Oregon years there was an increased emphasis on Rajneesh's prediction that the world might be destroyed by nuclear war or other disasters in the 1990s. Rajneesh had said as early as 1964 that the third and last war is now on the way, and frequently spoke of the need to create a new humanity to avoid global suicide. This now became the basis for a new exclusivity, and a 1983 article in the Rajneesh Foundation newsletter announcing that Rajneeshism is creating a Noah's Ark of consciousness. I say to you that except this there is no other way. Increased the sense of urgency in building the Oregon Commune. In March 1984, Sheila announced that Rajneesh had predicted the death of 2/3 of humanity from AIDS. Sannyasins were required to wear rubber gloves and condoms if they had sex, and to refrain from kissing, measures widely represented in the press as an extreme overreaction since condoms were not usually recommended for AIDS prevention, because AIDS was considered a homosexual disease at that stage. During his residence in Rajneeshpuram, Rajneesh also dictated 3 books under the influence of nitrous oxide administered to him by his private dentist: Glimpses of a Golden Childhood, Notes of a Madman and Books I Have Loved. Sheila later stated that Rajneesh took 60 milligrams of Valium each day and was addicted to nitrous oxide. Rajneesh denied these charges when questioned about them by journalists. At the peak of the Rajneeshpuram era, Rajneesh, assisted by a sophisticated legal and business infrastructure, had created a corporate machine consisting of various front companies and subsidiaries. At this time, the 3 main identifiable entities within his organization were the Ranch Church, or Rajneesh International Foundation, the Rajneesh Investment Corporation, through which the RIF was managed, and the Rajneesh Neo-Sannyasin International Commune. The umbrella organization that oversaw all investment activities was Rajneesh Services International Limited, a company incorporated in the UK, but based in Zurich. There were also smaller organizations, such as Rajneesh Travel Corp., Rajneesh Community Holdings, and the Rajneesh Modern Car Collection Trust, whose sole purpose was to deal with the acquisition and rental of Rolls-Royces. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?